at least, disclose, disclose, disclose. That's what's going to keep the PI out of trouble. It's not illegal to collaborate with foreign nationals. What makes it illegal is if they don't disclose it to the funding agency. And I'm going to give you at the end several offices to contact for help. If the PI has a question, so there's no reason a PI at UNM should get in trouble over not disclosing. So UNM supports academic freedom and the ability to exchange ideas and collaborate with the brightest minds of the world to benefit not only the United States, but the entire world. But when sharing of that research and that information is a one-way street, there are disclosure requirements, which are not new. They've been around for years, that the PI must comply with. They just got really strict about them when they figured out that the PIs weren't disclosing. This is not about getting people in trouble. It's about protecting our faculty and graduate students. It is the researchers' conduct, not their nationality, that's being scrutinized. Again, it's not illegal to collaborate with foreign nationals or get foreign support, but the PI has to understand their vulnerability and the risk of losing their research. International collaborations are acceptable, they're encouraged, but the relationship with that foreign national must be vetted by the funding agency and disclosed to them before entering into an agreement with that person. Accepting foreign support without disclosing it first could prevent a PI from obtaining US government funding in the future. But if they hide it, they could be arrested for it. In April of 2019, the provost gathered faculty in an auditorium to talk about this with the FBI. And since then, 13 faculty all over the United States have been arrested by the FBI. Multiple researchers have lost their job. Graduate students have been sent home. And there's absolutely no reason for that to happen at UNM. Again, the whole point of this training is to be transparent and to disclose all support, both foreign and domestic. Everybody always just focuses on the foreign part. Foreign support means all countries. And it covers whether or not the person is in their home country or in the United States. And I will focus on China because that is where we're having our problems. But again, it happens with all countries. And when I speak of China, I am referring to the Chinese Communist Party. So how does a PI know if there's reciprocity? Are you doing all the talking and they're taking all the notes? Is the sharing of information a one-way street? Are you taking any notes from what they're telling you? Are they offering you money with caveats? Are they contributing at all to the collaboration? Are they asking you specific questions about grant applications and progress reports? Because you can't share that either. And is there such thing as a gift without strings attached? So R&D research, the funding agencies have made the following crystal clear. Investigators and their universities must completely disclose all foreign activities to their sponsors. The US government provided $142 billion for R&D research in FY 2021. And there is growing bipartisan concern of theft of US taxpayer-funded research by other countries to advance their own objectives. And when I mean bipartisan, I mean, it is both sides of the aisle, and we all know that they don't agree on anything, but they're agreeing on this. The government believes if you are being funded by US money, then the American public should benefit from that investment. It is a conflict of interest and a conflict of commitment if you do the same work in a foreign country that you're doing on a US government contract. And this is not limited to defense research that's done mainly on main campus. It's biomedical research is also highly targeted, in particular rheumatoid arthritis, mainly because the people in China are getting older and they want that kind of research. Cancer research, Alzheimer's research, and now COVID-related research has led to increased interest in cyber theft. The research that UNM does has to be protected from theft, or the research can't continue their work. They can't publish, they can't apply for patents, and they can't advance their careers. Their career is pretty much over if their research is stolen. In August of 2018, the NIH was the first funding agency to come out and say, you need to disclose certain things to us at the proposal stage and anytime during the life of that contract or grant. And the last paragraph in their letter said, contact the FBI for a briefing on this matter. So you knew they were serious. I mean, who ends a letter, contact the FBI for a briefing on this matter? So we did contact the FBI. Richard Wood brought them in to a huge auditorium. We had a lot of faculty in there, and they explained to them that if they did not disclose, that they could be arrested. And that has happened. Like I said, 13 faculty have been arrested all over the United States. Following that NIH letter, the Department of Defense released their letter. Then the Department of Energy released their letter, and then a new update in September of 2020. And then, of course, the NSF released a similar letter requiring disclosure. And support does not only mean money. That's where all the PIs tell me, but Deb, I don't get paid to collaborate on publications or most of my collaborations, but that's not all it is. We're talking about, do you have a position or scientific appointment at a university? Or are you on the board of directors of a foreign business? Do you have an honorary position anywhere? Those things have to be disclosed. If you're selected to a foreign talents program, that has to be disclosed. If they send you high value materials that it's very rare that you can get, that has to be disclosed. If you get gifts and endowments, that has to be disclosed. If they send you a visiting scholar to help you with their research, that has to be disclosed. In-kind contributions such as office or lab space, equipment, supplies, those things have to be disclosed as well. The Foreign Talents Program is not an ordinary collaboration. You have to sign a multi-year contract with China if they recruit you. Again, it's not illegal to be part of a foreign talents program, but it's illegal if you don't disclose it. China's not the only country that wants our research. And the US government is not just picking on one country, but China is a focus, specifically because the Chinese Communist Party does not hide that they want this technology, and they don't hide how they intend to get it. If you Google China 2025, you will see what technology they want to be leading in 4 years. And the FBI has seen an increase of 1,300% of foreign theft with a link to China, and opens a new investigation into a China-related counterintelligence case every 10 hours. Talent plans were created by the Communist Party to recruit the best and brightest people who are living overseas to work at Chinese universities. The FBI is not targeting Chinese people. The Communist Party is targeting their own people. The CCP targets anyone working on the technology areas specified in their 2025 plan. The researcher has to prove they have access to the technology and information, and they're obligated to sign a multi-year contract that requires them to recruit other researchers. 7,000 scientists are currently participating in the identified talent programs. And the thing is, researchers in China don't operate under the same rules we do. There is no separation from their government. The Communist Party owns it all. Now, all these practices for strengthening the security and integrity of America's research enterprise, all of these practices came under the Trump administration. But they didn't end when he left office. The Biden administration is continuing these practices. And I get monthly updates what the Congress and Senate are doing to protect our research. And they are taking it seriously. And like I said, both sides are writing it together. And I put links on everything I'm talking about, and you can have this presentation so you can read them on your own. So not only can you get arrested, but you can lose your job if you don't disclose. And that's happening a lot all over the United States. And here are some of the arrests that you can look up. I could do a whole class on each of the 13 faculty members that were arrested, but I won't do that today. So you can look them up. This is one study. These two individuals were working at Harvard, and the guy on the left tried to smuggle out of the Boston Logan Airport 21 vials wrapped in plastic of a colleague's work. And that colleague had no idea that he stole it from the lab at Harvard. And the woman on the left is a lieutenant in the People's Liberation Army. And she failed to state that in her visa. So she is being sought after by the FBI for visa fraud and making false statements and conspiracy. And she came here under the guise of being a student in the chemistry lab at Harvard. And she returned to China before she could be arrested. So still looking for her. This was their mentor, advisor, the chair of Harvard's Chemistry and Chemical Biology Department. He had $15 million in DoD and NIH grants. He was involved in China's 1,000 Talents program. He lied to the funding agencies about it. He lied to Harvard about it. And in his arrest affidavit, it said that he was getting $50,000 a month from China and $150,000 a year for living and personal expenses, and more than $1.5 million by the Wuhan Technology University to conduct research at their university. So he was also arrested. These are other case studies I'll let you click on the links and read them yourself. But they all had NIH or NSF grants and worked for China as well. The person in the middle, Wan Tang, she was a visiting researcher in the cancer research, and she was also in the People's Liberation Army and failed to disclose that in her visa application. And because of that, China is threatening to detain Americans if we prosecute Chinese scholars. And that's Wan Tang there. The Department of Education letters for Section 117, I'm going to leave that to Jeremy in his portion. But I put links to the letters, to some of the letters that have been sent out. But I just wanted to make a point that OSP is responsible for reporting, but they can't do it if the PI is not reporting. And then we get in trouble when that happens. So how UNM is addressing foreign influence. The provost and VPR sent out an email to all faculty regarding disclosure requirements. And the VPR has a website that Grace and I try to keep updated on all the changes from each of the funding agencies. So hopefully that can be something that will also help you find the answers to your questions. Again, the onus is on the PI. At the proposal stage, OSP is going to help the PI get everything they need to disclose in that proposal. And if there is a change during the contract or something that was accidentally omitted in the original proposal, it has to be updated with the sponsor as soon as possible. And I will let Rosa pipe in here if I'm wrong, but OSP can assist them with updating their disclosures. And I don't know if she wants to pipe in now or after Jeremy's presentation.
Probably after, maybe.
Yeah, let's wait. Please, let's wait after.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the point I want to make is if we continue not to disclose and violate how we're supposed to work and collaborate with others on our research, the government will create, and they're talking about it already, new standards for fundamental research. And that is a scary proposition. That definition of fundamental research has been since 1985. And if we don't get this right, they're going to help us get it right. And if you think there's a lot to put on a PI now, it's not even near what it's going to be. It's practically going to be impossible for them to work on fundamental research the way they're doing it now. Now, for help at UNM, of course, OSP, the Faculty Research Development Office, and Jeremy for Section 117 reporting. The Office of Research and Compliance for conflict of interest, financial conflict of interest reporting, they can answer questions about this. Our Export Control Office can answer questions. And I would be happy to do this presentation at your department meetings to make PIs aware. And I will also be happy to provide foreign travel briefings for the PIs and graduate students because that is where they're most vulnerable to losing their research. Just reach out to me for those. And then I put the links to NSF, DOD, DOE, and NIH for further information for you all. I know that was quick. If I go to your department, it'll be a lot slower and questions can be asked during, so. I don't know how you want to handle questions, Grace.
People can post them in chat as the slides go through, and then we can kind of go through it.
Okay.
All right, thanks,
Do
Deb.
you want to unshare, Deb, so Jeremy can take? There you go. Thank you.
Okay. And that's always a hard act to follow. Deb's presentations are always very interesting and intriguing and a little bit scary, but it's really good information. And I echo her sentiments. Disclosure and transparency is really at the heart of all of this and really at the heart of our presentation today. So if you get nothing out of this other than the importance of disclosure and transparency, then that's good. So I'm going to cover section 117 reporting. This is something that was enacted by Congress through the Higher Education Act of 1965 in light of concerns about the growing financial relationship between U.S. universities and foreign sources. This has been required of U.S. institutions to publicly disclose and report foreign gifts and contracts to the Department of Education. And that requirement has actually been in place since 1986. So this is not anything new, but it's definitely relevant and it's timely. And it's something that U.S. institutions with the amount of research that we handle really need to be concerned about and take seriously. Section 117 mandates financial transparency through required reporting of contracts with or gifts from a foreign source that alone or in aggregate and combined with other sources are valued at $250,000 or more. So essentially anything that hits the $250,000 threshold, whether that's an individual gift or contract or a aggregation of multiple gifts and contracts from the same foreign source, those are required to be reported to the Department of Education. The reporting requirements, I've boiled them down to the very basics. There's a lot more to it than what I have on the screen here, but this is the crux of the reporting requirements for both gifts and contracts. Essentially, they want to know what foreign source is providing the gift or contract. They want to know the address, including country of origin. For gifts, they want to know the gift terms. They want to know the amount of the gift. They want to know the date that gift was received. And they want to know who it was received from, including intermediaries. So one of my future slides will discuss how intermediaries kind of come into play on some of this stuff. Some of these gifts may not be direct gifts from a foreign source, but it could be through a third party. So those are things that definitely need to be taken into consideration. As far as contracts go, the same stuff: name of foreign source address, domestic party, again, dealing with intermediaries, and then contract terms. So what was the amount of the contract and what are the contractual start and end dates? In addition, there are additional reporting requirements for restricted or conditional contracts or grants. And those are essentially 4 questions. Does it relate to the employment, assignment, or termination of faculty at the institution? Does it relate to establishing a department, a center, a research or lecture program, or new faculty positions? Does it relate to the selection or admission of students to that institution? And lastly, does it relate to the award of grants, loans, scholarships, fellowships, or any other forms of financial aid related to students of a specified country, religion, sex, ethnic origin, or political opinion? So those are specific disclosure requirements that are required for restricted or conditional gifts or contracts. To echo what Deb mentioned in her slides, Congress takes this very seriously. So a few years ago, they actually engaged with the US Department of Education General Counsel to conduct essentially a report back to Congress of Section 117 compliance and reporting. And I'm just going to quote directly out of that report here. But it said Congress did not task the Department of Education with assessing the positive, negative, or neutral impact of foreign money and foreign influence in American higher education. Rather, Congress asked us to ensure the public had transparency from colleges and universities so that you could make such an assessment yourself and hold those institutions accountable. So essentially what they're getting at is Section 117 is the vehicle by which taxpayers can hold institutions accountable for the actions that they take. This is very much a transparency thing. They want institutions to be accountable for any, foreign gifts or contracts that are, outside of our mission. I'm just going to highlight some of the findings of that report because I think they're interesting and I think they get to why this is being scrutinized so heavily now. And I'll preface this with don't kill the messenger. This is out of their report. So these are not my words. These are reports from the General Counsel of Department of Education. The first finding they had to Congress was the largest, wealthiest, and most sophisticated of America's institutions of higher ed have received billions of dollars in assets using an assortment of related intermediaries. So that, I think that goes without saying. Secondly, evidence suggests institutional decision-making is generally divorced from any sense of obligation to our taxpayers or concern for our American national interests, security, or values. That's a pretty strong statement, right? Again, not my words, that's coming from the General Counsel, Department of Ed. Third, for at least 2 decades, the industry has been on direct notice that at least some of these foreign sources are hostile to the United States and are targeting their investments, i.e. gifts and contracts, to project soft power, still sensitive and proprietary research and spread propaganda. Again, you heard a lot of this from what Deb presented in the first part. Fourth, our investigations, and that's Department of Education, confirm a Senate subcommittee's finding that Section 117 reporting is systemically under-inclusive and inaccurate. So they're basically telling Congress Section 117 reporting is not being done or it's being done wrong. Again, pretty big finding. Fifth, there's reason for concern that foreign money buys influence or control over teaching and research. What's UNM's mission? Teaching and research, right? So these are things institutions of higher ed need to take very seriously. Since 2012, institutions reported anonymous donations from China, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Russia, totaling more than $1.14 billion. That's a lot of money going out to or coming in from foreign sources, and particularly those countries. All right, this next slide is a who's who of research institutions across the university. But if you read the title of the slide, it's not a very good one. Schools that receive notices of investigation and record request from the Department of Education related to Section 117. You will see UNM on that list. Deb provided a URL link to that Department of Education letter if you're interested in reading it. But I'll also point out, look at some of the other institutions on the list. Harvard, Yale, Cornell, MIT, Stanford, the list goes on. These are some very prestigious, high-powered institutions that deal with a lot of research money. So it wasn't just UNM, this was across the board. The Department of Education is taking it very seriously, and they're sending notices of investigation and record request letters out to all of these major institutions. All right, so let's talk a little bit about UNM's response and what we're doing. UNM has a process in place for Section 117 reporting. It's done semi-annually, so every July and January, our office, along with other accounting offices across the institution, compile a list of gifts and contracts received for the prior 6-month reporting period. And this is obviously gifts and contracts from a foreign source. We compile that list with the help of both contract and grant accounting offices on main campus as well as HSC, UNM Foundation, the Global Education Office, Financial Aid, and other accounting offices as appropriate if they have any gifts or contracts that need to be reported. Again, we ask for everything. We don't care about the $250,000 threshold at this point. We're collecting all foreign source gifts and contracts because the next step we do is we aggregate. Again, if you read the requirement of Section 117, we have to report a single gift in excess of $250,000 or aggregated that meets the $250,000 threshold. Therefore, we have to do the dirty work and compile the list across all offices across the university and find out if we have anything from one foreign source that meets that reporting threshold. If we do have that, we actually have to log into a Department of Education reporting portal that our office has access to and disclose all of the information on that gift or contract, including some of the things I mentioned earlier, name of the foreign source, the address, intermediaries, and specifics if it's a restricted or conditional grant, gift, or contract. This is what the disclosure essentially ends up as, is something that's viewable to anybody as a taxpayer. So if you go to the Department of Education Section 117 website, you can look up any foreign gift and contract. You can run the report yourself. You can filter by school, you can filter by state, transaction type. And just to show you some of UNM's disclosures, we have a few down there. I did a print screen of the report on the Department of Education website. And if you look, there's a details column, so you can actually click to get the details of all the disclosure requirements that we submitted for those contracts in this case. And then I do want to announce we also have a new self-disclosure form that is on the OVPR Foreign Influence website that Grace and Deb mentioned earlier. Grace and Deb have done a lot of work on this website. I encourage anyone that hasn't yet been there to go visit it. There's a lot of really good information. You will find a Section 117 tab if you go to the Foreign Influence website. And within that tab, there's now a link directly to a self-disclosure form. It's essentially a form stack. I do want to point out, this is kind of the fail-safe catch net for anything that falls through the cracks. So our first line of defense when it comes to reporting is the accounting offices. Everything that is awarded to the institution from a foreign source, whether it be a gift through the UNM Foundation, a contract through OSP, and then ends up in contract and grant accounting, those are caught at the accounting level and reported to us through the accounting offices. What we're trying to capture with the self-disclosure form is anything else that a PI might have received directly and not reported to an accounting office, or something that didn't go through OSP. Because we've got a pretty good grip on everything that did come through our office. What we're missing is anything that we don't see, right? We don't know what we don't know. So if there's any PIs out there that might be doing collaborations with foreign sources, and it's not something that's going through the foundation or OSP or CNG, those are the things we want to know about. So I provided the link on here for any self-disclosures. That information comes to our office and would be included in the aggregation of the report we do semi-annually. And that's my presentation. So I think we've got about 8 minutes left if anybody has any questions for either me or Deb.
I guess while people are thinking, Rosa, do you have anything to add?
We want to, yeah, clarify it on the reporting piece. And let's see, I'm going to let Michelle take that one since she's at the front of operations with proposal submission and awards.
Thanks, Rosa. Yeah, so just to go back and clarify on this, so OSP actually serves as really the channel in which we collect the information and submit it to the sponsors. Sponsors don't want to hear directly from individual PIs, so we serve as the office that organizes that information and submits it. But it also depends on the policy that the individual sponsor has adopted. So what we know so far is that we are obligated to, as an institution, our PIs are obligated to include the details of their support, whether it be funded or unfunded, in current and pending reports that they submit, of course, with their proposals, and also their bio sketches. So the bio sketches should outline the collaborations that they have with other entities. So those are the two main forms that we collect at the time of proposal. That often happens at the department end. Of course, as research administrators, you all work with your PIs to ensure that they're completing all of these forms, but it is up to the PI to report, as Deb mentioned at the beginning of this. At this time of award, and for NIH specifically, NIH has made it very clear that they want to hear from PIs if there are any changes to collaborations with partners in the interim. Once, before an award is made, and also as the award is active on a regular basis through the annual reporting that is required. So with that said, we will be, OSP will be the unit in which we'll be collecting that information and submitting it to the program officer for the official communication, if you will. But that is really the extent to which we're involved.
Thank you, Michelle. There's a question in the chat too. Oh, Rosa, do you have anything else to add before we go to the question?
And to address the question in the chat, the scope of foreign gifts and contracts at UNM, that's a good question. I'll give you a rough figure. So it's in the hundreds of gifts and contracts that we aggregate and accumulate. I will caveat that most of these gifts are very small dollar amounts through the foundation. So if you look at the contract and grant accounting offices, we probably have active between the two HSC and main campus offices, anywhere from 20 to 40 active foreign contracts between both offices. But the bulk of it comes from UNM Foundation. It's very small dollar amounts, but we do get a lot in quantity of foreign gifts and contracts.
Any other questions out there? And both Jeremy and Deb's presentation with the recording will be posted on the event page next to their session. So feel free to go back and review. If there are no questions, we have 3 minutes. You can go back into the main room for final logistics from Greg, I believe. And that should conclude this presentation.
Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, guys. Good job.
Thanks, Monica.